This is Say It in English Tips, episode number 9. In today's show, we are going to talk about gibberish. Gibberish is defined by certain dictionaries as nonsense talk. But another definition of gibberish is the ability to mimic languages, even if you don't know anything about the grammar and vocabulary of the languages you pretend to speak. How is it possible to speak in other language or languages different from your own if you're not familiar with the grammar and vocabulary and at the same time sound fluent? The answer is by using the ability of mimicking. Mimicking is a great ability, and not everybody has this kind of gift. In matter of fact, just a few persons are able to imitate people, animals, and even languages very close to perfection. People who practice gibberish just pretend they're able to speak other languages, sounding very natural, as if they were native speakers. But the reality is that they can't say even a word. How is it possible? Although people who practice gibberish probably don't know, or know just a little, about the grammar and vocabulary of the languages they pretend to speak, there is something that is totally true. For sure, they are familiar enough with the sounds and intonation patterns of those languages. Being familiar with the sounds and intonation patterns of a language help us sound fluent and natural when we speak other languages different from our own. That's why gibberish gives us the sensation that people who perform it are very fluent, when the reality is that they aren't. What is the connection between talking in gibberish and learning a new language? We need to become little mimickers if we want to learn a new language. When we learn a new language, one of the things we need to be familiar with is the sounds and intonation patterns of the language we want to learn. This is a basic principle that we need to keep in mind. Although the ability to imitate the sounds and intonation patterns of a foreign language is rare, because not everybody has the talent naturally, with a lot of hard work, we can be able to imitate both the sounds and intonation patterns of English. Getting training just in grammar and learning a long list of words is not enough if you want to master a language. Learning English requires to understand how the intonation patterns work. Learning English demands the use of the proper sounds of English, not the ones of your mother tongue. How to master the intonation patterns of English. To explain how intonation works is a very long path, and it is not solved completely at the present time. Teaching intonation has traditionally been neglected from most of the language centers around the world due to its high complexity. So, the best way to learn the intonation patterns of English, to assimilate and internalize the intonation patterns, is not to understand how they work, but imitate them from recordings made by native speakers. What we need to do is to imitate a native speaker's voice by repeating what he says almost simultaneously, as close as we can, just with a little difference in time between his voice and ours. So, we need to follow the recording as if we were its shadow. This is called shadow talking. Notice that we have to try to repeat the sounds and intonation patterns of the native speaker's voice as accurately as we can, not the words. Proper articulation of words is not important in this exercise. That's why it doesn't matter if you don't understand anything. The purpose of this exercise is not the understanding of its content. Content doesn't matter here. It's about sounds and intonation. This is what it really matters when you perform shadow talking. Shadow talking doesn't need a text to read, but if you're concerned about the understanding of the content, you can practice shadow reading as well. Just grab a recording together with its transcript and do exactly the same as with shadow talking. By repeating once and again the intonation patterns and sounds of the native speaker's recording, without paying too much attention to the perfect articulation of words, we're going to master the musicality of English language. That is very complex to explain, but can be easily learned by practicing once and again. 20 minutes a day is the standard recommendation. By acquiring the intonation patterns and sounds of English this way, we're going to be able to sound very fluent like the ones who practice gibberish. The only difference is that you'll be mastering the real language, not just pretending. This is a good technique that I highly recommend you if you really want to master English pronunciation. That's it for today's show. This is Say It in English Tips, sponsored by Say It in English. Your pronunciation improvement is just waiting for you. Bye-bye.